Cyclops. We're talking about the Lotus Eaters. Now we're going to move on to our one-eyed purple people eater. I'm joking, that's not what he's called, and that's not what they're. But you know the same thing. Alright, so I'm going to go to view real quick, and I just want a continuous scroll this time. Look, I'm finally figuring out how to work this thing. Alright, so we're going to continue our annotating. Follow along while I read. And this way, haha, you're getting off easy because I'm reading to you. Alright, so the Cyclops. In the next land we found were Cyclopses, giant louts without a law to bless them. In ignorance, leaving the fruitage of the earth in mystery to the immortal gods, they neither plough nor sow by hand, nor till the ground, though grain, wild wheat, and barley grows untended, and wine grapes in clusters ripen in heaven's rains. So here we have talking about the what? That's right, we have the setting here. So all right here, it is the setting of Cyclops Island. Yeah. That's how I'm going to spell it though, okay? All right. So we see that they are what kind of people? If we see the words like farming, tilling, do they actually do these things, or do they just live off the land? I'm thinking they live off the land and just sit around and hang out and take what is naturally growing there on the island. Like we see that they neither plow nor sow the land. So they don't till it. They're not farmers. But wild wheat and barley grows, and wine grapes grow. So they are just hanging out on a very prosperous island. So Cyclopses have no muster and no meetings, no consultation or old tribal ways, but each one dwells in his own mountain cave, dealing out rough justice to wife and child, indifferent to what others do. What does it mean to be indifferent? You don't care about anyone else, you only care about yourself. Alright, so this is where they end up. They are in the Cyclops' island. They see that they have a chance to come into the island. So they start exploring. So that shows us that Odysseus is curious. And so they come upon the cave that the Cyclops is living in. And what they did is we lit a fire, burnt an offering, and took some cheese to eat, then sat in silence around the embers waiting. When he came, he being the Cyclops, he had a load of dry boughs on his shoulder to stoke his fire at supper time. He dumped it with a great crash into the hollow cave, and we all scattered fast to the far wall. Then over the broad cavern floor he ushered the ewes he meant to milk. He left his rams and he-goats. Oh, okay, so they're he-goats, they're males. In the yard outside, and swung high overhead a slab of solid rock to close the cave. So that's acting as a door. Oh dear. 24 four-wheeled wagons with heaving wagon teams could not have stirred the tonic of that rock from where he wedged it over the doorsill. So this sentence right here is saying that not even 24, that means 24 wagons could not move this rock. So that's like whenever you get stuck in the mud and you're getting your buddy to try to yank out your car or your four-wheeler, and it just won't budge. So even if they had 24 wagons pulling on this rock, it's not going to move. And that is the door, the only exit. I'll let you chew on that. Next he took his seat and milked his bleating ewes being goats. A practice job he made of it, giving each ewe her suckling, thickened his milk, then into curds and whey, sieved out the curds to drip in withy baskets, and poured the whey to stand in bowls, cooling until he drank it for his supper. Yuck! So he's making cheese. When all these chores were done, he poked the fire, heaping on brushwood. In the glare, he saw us. Dun dun dun. "Strangers!" he said. "Who are you, and where from? What brings you here by seaways? A fair traffic? Or are you wandering rogues who cast your lives like dice and ravage other folk by sea?" We felt a pressure on our hearts. Yeah, that's called fear, in dread of that deep rumble and that mighty man. But all the same I spoke up in reply. "We're from Troy, Achaeans, blown off course by shifting gales on the great South Sea, homeward bound, but taking routes and ways uncommon, so the will of Zeus would have it. We served under Agamemnon, I can never pronounce his name, son of Atreus. The whole world knows that city he laid waste, what armies he destroyed. It was our luck to come here. Here we stand, beholden for your help or any gifts you give, as custom is to honor strangers. We would entreat you, sir, great sir, have a care for the gods' courtesy, and Zeus will avenge the unoffending guest." So remember, the custom is to honor strangers. This is hospitality called xenia. And the reason why they had to be so hospitable is, remember how tricky the Greek gods were. They would pretend to be strangers to get people to show who they truly were, or to even trick them into some unsightly thing, like Zeus a lot of times. So here Odysseus is asking for these gifts and that hospitality. He's expecting it. And he's expecting great big gifts because he's a Cyclops. And he even did a lot of name dropping besides Zeus and the great king Agamemnon. So he's making sure that the Cyclops knows, hey, we're pretty important people. So that's what Odysseus said. Now the Cyclops answered this from his brute chest, unmoved. "You are a ninny, or else you come from the other end of nowhere, telling me, mind the gods? We Cyclopses care not a whistle for your thundering Zeus, or all the gods in bliss. We have more force by far. I would not let you go for fear of Zeus. You are your friends, unless I had a whim to. Tell me, where was it now you left your ship? Around the point or down the shore, I wonder?" So through the beginning, he said that you're a ninny. Ay, okay. And then telling him to mind the gods, he explains that the Cyclopses do not care a whistle for your thundering Zeus or all the gods in bliss. The Cyclopses are more a force by far. So this is showing us that he does not fear the gods, or if the gods would get angry at him for not upholding Xenia. So now he's just proved that this was an island without law, an island without care for the gods. What do you think's going to happen? Yeah, I don't think this bodes well for Odysseus. And if you point out right here is that he starts asking where they left the ship. Why would he want to know where Odysseus parked his ride? Hold on to that thought. He thought he'd find out, but I saw through this and answered with a ready lie. Go, Odysseus. My ship? Poseidon, Lord, who sets the earth a-tremble, broke it up on the rocks at your land's end. A wind from seaward served him, drove us there. We are survivors, these good men and I. So he just lied. He just said that his ship got wrecked and that there's no one waiting for him and that they are the only survivors. Neither reply nor pity came from him, but in one stride he clutched at my companions and caught two in his hands like squirming puppies to beat their brains out, splattering the floor. Ugh. Then he dismembered them and made his meal, gaping and crunching like a mountain lion. Everything, innards, flesh and marrow, bones. We cried aloud, lifting our hands to Zeus, powerless, looking on at this, appalled. But Cyclops went on, filling his belly with man flesh and great gulps of whey, then lay down like a mast among his sheep. My heart beat high now at the chance of action, and drawing the sharp sword from my hip, I went along his flank to stab him where the midriff holds the liver. So he is feeling like, okay, I'm going to kill this dude right now, and this is how I'm going to do it. I had touched the spot when sudden fear stayed me. If I killed him, we perish there as well, for we could never move his ponderous doorway slab aside. So we were left there to groan and wait for morning. So the reason why he couldn't kill him in his sleep is why? Think on it, think on it. That's right, because of the great big doorway. So what does this show us about Odysseus? Who is he? If he could take a moment to not avenge his friends and think through on how to survive, what does that show us about him? So let's continue and find out how they get out of this situation. When the young dawn with fingertips of rose lit up the world, the Cyclops built a fire and milked his handsome ewes, all in due order, putting the suckling to the mothers. Then his chores being all dispatched, he caught another brace of men to make his breakfast. They just slipped that in there. Did y'all catch it? He caught another couple men to eat for breakfast. Okay, I'll just take coffee and eggs, please. So then, his chores being all dispatched, he caught another brace of men to make his breakfast, and whisked away his great door slab to let his sheep go through. But he, behind, reset the stone as one would cap a quiver. There was a din of whistling as the Cyclops rounded his flock to higher ground, then stillness. And now I pondered how to hurt him worse. But if Athena granted what I prayed for. So there's his reference to his patron goddess Athena. Here are the means I thought would serve my turn. A club or staff lay there among the fold, an olive tree felled of green and left to season for the Cyclops' hand. And it was a mast, a lugger of 20 oars, broad in the beam, and a deep sea-going craft might carry. So long, so big around it seemed. Now I chopped out a 6-foot section of this pole, and set it down before my men, who scraped it. And when they had it smooth, I hewed again to make a stake with a pointed end. I held this in the fire's heart and turned it, toughening it, then hid it well back in the cavern, under one of the dung piles in profusion there. Dung means poop, so the sheep are living there, so on the floor there's poop and the guts of all his friends. Now came the time to toss for it. Who ventured along with me? Whose hand could bear to thrust and grind that spike in the Cyclops' eye? Alright, so there's a plan there. They're going to take it and shove it in his eye. I wonder how this is going to work. When mild sleep had mastered him, as luck would have it, the men I would have chosen won the toss. 4 strong men, and I made 5 as captain. At evening came the shepherd with his flock, his woolly flock. The rams as well this time entered the cave. By some sheep-herding whim or a god's bidding, none were left outside. He hefted his great boulder into place, and set him down to milk the bleeding ewes in proper order, put the lambs to suck, and swiftly ran through all of his evening chores. Then he caught 2 more men and feasted on them. What? That just adds, I don't even know. Oof. My moment was at hand, and I went forward, holding an ivy bowl of my dark drink, looking up, saying, Cyclops, try some wine. Here's liquor to wash down your scraps of men. Taste it, and see the kind of drink we carried under our planks. I meant it for an offering if you would help us home, but you are mad, unbearable, a bloody monster. After this, will any other traveler come to see you? So here's Odysseus, he's making out his plan, and he's kind of making the Cyclops try to be guilty, right? It's like, here's some wine to wash down all the men you've been eating. He seized and drained the bowl, and it went down so fiery and smooth he called for more. Give me another, thank you kindly. Tell me, how are you called? I'll make a gift, will you please you? Even Cyclopses know the wine grapes grow out of grassland and loam in heaven's rain, but here's a bit of nectar and ambrosia. So that's what he's saying. He's saying that this wine is better than anything on the Cyclops one. So he's like, I'll give you a gift. 3 bowls I brought him, and poured them down. I saw the fuddle and flush come over him, and I sang out in cordial tones, Cyclops, you ask my honorable name. Remember the gift you promised me, and I shall tell you. My name is Nobody. Mother, father, and friends, everyone calls me Nobody. And he said, Nobody. Mine's meat, then. After I eat his friends, others come first. There's a noble gift now. Even as he spoke, he reeled and tumbled backward, his great head lolling to one side, and sleep took him like a creature. Drunk and hiccuping, he dribbled streams of liquor and bits of men. Gross. Now, by the gods, I drove my big hand spike deep into the embers, charring it again, and cheered my men along the battle, talked to keep their courage up. No quitting now. The pike of olive, green though it had been, reddened and glowed as if about to catch. I drew it from the coals, and my 4 fellows gave me a hand, lugging it near the Cyclops, as more than natural force nerved them. Straight forward they sprinted it, lifting it, and rammed it deep in his crater eye. See, there's only one eye on a Cyclops. And I leaned on it, turning it as a shipwright turns a drill and planking, having men below to swing the 2-handed strap that spins it in the groove. So with our brand we bore that great eye socket, while blood ran out the red-hot bar. Eyelid and lash were seared, the piercing ball hissed broiling, and the roots popped. Oh, the imagery. It's so gross. In a smithy, one sees a white-hot axe-head or an adzes plunged and wrung in a cold tub, screeching stem, the way they make soft iron hale and hard. But just so the eyeball hissed around the spike. The Cyclops bellowed, and the rock roared around him, and we fell back in fear. Clawing his face, he tugged the bloody spike out of his eye, threw it away, and his hands went groping. Then he set up a howl for the Cyclopses who lived in caves on windy peaks nearby. Now remember the beginning when it was talking about Cyclops Island. Did everybody care about each other, or were they indifferent? The answer's indifferent. Some heard him, and they came by divers ways to clump around the outside and call, "What ails you, Polyphemus? What do you cry so sore in the starry night? You will not let us sleep. Sure no man's driving off your flock. No man has tricked you, ruined you." Little did they know, right? Out of the cave, the mammoth Polyphemus roared in answer, "Nobody! Nobody's tricked me! Nobody's ruined me!" To his rough shout, they made a sage reply, "Ah, well, if nobody has played you foul, there in your lonely bed, we are no use in pain given by great Zeus. Let it be your father, Lord Poseidon, who you pray." Hold the phone. Who is his daddy? Oh, it's Poseidon. Okay, keep that in mind. So saying, they trailed away, and I was filled with laughter. Oh, this is Odysseus. He's filled with laughter now. Okay. To see how like a charm the name deceived them. Now Cyclops, wheezing as the pain came on him, fumbled to wrench away the great doorstone, and squatted in the breach with arms thrown wide for any silly beast or man who bolted, hoping somehow I might be such a fool. And we know Odysseus is no fool. But I kept thinking how to win the game. So his friends have died, but this is all a game. Death sat there, huge. How could we slip away? I drew on all my wits and ran through tactics, reasoning as a man will for dear life, until a trick came and it pleased me well. The Cyclops rams were handsome, fat, with heavy fleeces and dark violet. 3 abreast I tied them silently together, twining cords of willow from the ogre's bed. Then slung a man under each middle one, to ride there safely, shielded left and right. So 3 sheep could convey each man. I took the woolliest ram, the choicest of the flock, and hung myself under his kinky belly, pulled up tight with fingers twisted deep in sheepskin ringlets for an iron grip. So he picked the best one, because who is Odysseus to himself? The best. So breathing hard, we waited until the morning, when dawn spread out her fingertips of rose. So what kind of figurative language would that be? Keep that in mind. The rams began to stir, moving for pasture, and peals of bleating echoed around the pens, where dams with udders full called for a milking. Blinded and sick with pain from his head wound, the master stroked each ram, then let it pass. But my men, riding on the pectoral fleece, the giant's blind hands blundering never found. Last of them all, my ram, the leader, came, weighted by wool and me with my meditations. The Cyclops patted him, and then said, "Sweet cousin Ram, why lag behind the rest in the night cave? You never linger so, but graze before them all, and you go afar to crop sweet grass, and take your stately way, leading along the streams, until at evening you run to be the first one in the fold. Why now so far behind? Can you be grieving over your master's eye? That carrion rogue and his accursed companions burnt it out when he had conquered all my wits with wine. Nobody will not get out alive, I swear. Oh, had you a brain and voice, tell where he may be now, dodging all my fury. Bashed by his hand and bashed on this rock wall, his brains would strew the floor, and I should have rest from the outrage. Nobody worked upon me." So what's ironic here? That's right. He's talking about nobody, which is Odysseus, and Odysseus can hear, and he's talking to his lamb, which Odysseus is hiding underneath. That's really ironic. He set us into the open pen. Then, Close by, I dropped and rolled clear of the ram's belly, going this way and that to untie the men. With many glances back, we rounded up his fat, stiff-legged sheep to take aboard, and drove them down to where the good ship lay. So now they're stealing his sheep. Okay. We saw as we came near our fellows' faces shining. Then we saw them turn to grief, tallying those who had not fled from death. I hushed them, jerking my head and eyebrows up, and in a low voice told them, "Load this herd, move fast, and put the ship's head towards the breakers." They all pitched in at loading, then embarked and struck out their oars into the sea. Far out, as far offshore as shouted words carry, I sent a few back to the adversary. So now he's shouting back at the Cyclops, right? "Oh, Cyclops, would you feast on my companions? Puny am I, in a caveman's hands? How do you like the beating that we gave you, you damned cannibal? Eater of guests under your roof? Zeus and the gods have paid you." The blind thing in his doubled fury broke a hilltop in his hands and heaved it after us. Ahead of our black prow it struck and sank, whelmed in spurning geyser, a giant wave that washed the ship's stern foremost back to shore. Oh my gosh, Odysseus! Let's make sure I have it the right color. I'm gonna go with. So here's Odysseus in his ship, right? Let's see if it'll work. It's not going to work this time. So Odysseus is in his ship. He is going away, right? Well, the Cyclops takes a hill and throws it over here, and it makes the ship go all the way back to shore. If I was Odysseus' shipmate, I would be punching him in the throat now. Just saying. No, we don't need that yet. We don't need that yet. Move you. Okay. Where was I? Oh, right. Odysseus is being dumb. I got the longest boat hook out and stood fending us off with furious nods to all to put their backs into a racing stroke. Row, row or perish. So the long oars bent, kicking foam sternwards, making head until we drew away twice as far. Now, when I cut my hands, I heard the crew in low voices protesting. "God's sake, Captain, why bait the beast again? Let him alone. That tidal wave he made on the first throw all but beached us. All but stove us in. Give him our bearing with your trumpeting. He'll get the range and lob a boulder. Aye, he'll smash all our timbers and our heads together." I would not heed them in my glorying spirit, but let my anger flare and yelled. Do y'all have that friend that even though you tell them it's not a good idea, they do it anyway while you're telling them it's a bad idea? Yeah, that's Odysseus. "Cyclops, if ever mortal man inquire how you were put to shame and blinded, tell him Odysseus, raider of cities, took your eye." Oh my gosh, he gave his name. "Laterus' son, whose home is on Ithaca." He gave him his address. At last he gave a mighty sob and rumbled, "Now comes the weird upon me." This is the Cyclops. "Spoken of old, a wizard grand and wondrous lived here, Telemus, a son of Eurymachus. Great length of days he had wizardly among the Cyclopses, and the things he foretold for time to come, my great eye lost and at Odysseus' hand." So he had a fortune teller tell him what was going to happen to him, and that's called his fate. So anytime you think of fate, can you change it? It didn't change for the Cyclops. Always I had in mind some giant armed and giant force would come against me here. But you, small, pitiful, and twiggy, you put me down with wine, you blinded me. Come back, Odysseus, and I will treat you well, praying to the god of earthquake to befriend you. His son am I. His son am I, for he by his avowal fathered me, and if he will, he may heal me of this black wound, he and no other of all the happy gods or mortal men. So remember, the god of earthquake is his daddy, Poseidon, who's Odysseus's patron goddess. Okay. Few words I shouted in reply to him. If I could take your life, I would, and take your time away, and hurl you down to hell. The god of earthquake could not heal you there. Did y'all catch that? He just said that Poseidon couldn't heal him if he killed him. So he's saying that Poseidon isn't all powerful, and we know gods don't like that. So at this, he stretched his hands out in his darkness toward the sky of stars and prayed, Poseidon, oh, hear me, Lord Blue Girdler of the islands, if I am thine indeed, and thou art father, grant that Odysseus, raider of cities, never see his home, Laterus' son, I mean all who kept his hall in Ithaca, should destiny intend that he shall see his roof again among his family and fatherland, far be that day and dark the years between, let him lose all companions and return under a strange sail to bitter days at home. Ooh, this right here, this is the reason why everything happens from now on. Alright, so what I want you to do is you're going to consider, again, you're going to write your summary, just get an idea. This is helping us know that we understand what happened in the story. Now you're going to continue to read the Odyssey and do the same thing as you did with the Lotus Eaters, making those annotations, picking out those ideas, and then I'm going to post an assignment that asks you to write, is Odysseus a hero? And you have to use specific examples from each book that's in here to talk about how this makes him a hero or how it doesn't make him a hero. All right? Okay, I will post more instructions on that at a later time. Hope y'all enjoyed my reading of the Cyclops with awesome annotations, and I will see you soon.